Okay, guys, welcome back to All Nerd Everything. And if you're new here, welcome to my channel where I discuss all things film, TV show, comic book, and even anime related. And wanting to discuss more comic books, I decided to discuss a very underrated comic book when it comes to one of my favorite comic book characters, and that is the Man of Steel, Superman. And seeing how James Gunn's Superman is set to be released in only a couple of months, and this year has breezed by so far. I decided to dive deep more into the Superman lore, and I wanted to discuss a very underrated Superman comic that I think a lot of people don't talk about enough. And this came right before Superman Brainiac, which is my favorites, one of my favorites Superman comics. It's easily top 10 for me, and Brainiac is one of the greatest villains in any rogues gallery, in my opinion. But issue issue 865 of Action Comics is written by Jeff Johns, one of the best writers, and also penciled in ink by Jesus Morano or Marino. I believe that's how you pronounce the last name. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm butchering it. But this comic details the backstory of Toyman, the very first Toyman, to be specific, Winslow Scott, how he became Toyman and why he's so obsessed with building toys. And the reason is he just wants to make children feel good. He wants to make people feel happy about, you know, the things that he creates. And even though he's a little crazy, I'd say maybe even a tad bit sociopathic, and he does have a tendency, based on this issue, it seems like he has a alternate personality disorder. I'm not a doctor, but based on the story of this issue and other stories that I've read of Toyman, it does seem that Winslow Scott and Toyman are kind of two different entities, and the whole story is told from the perspective of Toyman, which I really like. And he tells this whole story of why he's obsessed with toys, and why he's obsessed with toys and why he's so hateful and vengeful. And he captures Jimmy Olsen, who has to listen to his whole villain arc, essentially. And the only reason he captures Jimmy Olsen is because he mistakes Jimmy Olsen for a teenager, which is absolutely hilarious to me. And when he finds out that Jimmy is not a kid, he goes absolutely ballistic. And even though it shouldn't be funny, it's just a very simple mistake on Toyman's part. So in this issue, we find out that Toyman, Winslow Scott, him and his wife were very happily in love, and that they were wanting to have children, but they were unable to. And he grew up loving toys because his grandfather was a toy maker, and his father was also a toy maker. And that's when he gets this opportunity to make toys by this guy that wants to invest in him. I'm blanking the on the guy's name. I know his last name is Dunhill, but this guy comes to Winslow Scott, ask him for ask him if he wants to ask him to invest in him making toys for his company. He's turned down, and a couple of weeks later, he has this mental. He falls into a deep depression because his wife Mary tragically dies in a car accident. That's when he decides to take up this guy's opportunity to create toys for his company. Turns out that it was all a front and a lie, just for just to manufacture weapons for his company. and he goes absolutely ballistic, like, hey, I did not sign up for this. I created my toys for children, so children could feel good, but you don't even need a toy company, you were just using me. And he he bites the dust for lying to him. And there's a really great part of this comic that I don't think a lot of people talk about, or I think that it's kind of glossed over. when when Superman and Batman, yes, Batman is in this issue. When Jimmy finds out, when Jimmy tells Toyman that he's a grown adult and he goes ballistic, he calls Superman with his watch. Batman comes in to save the day because they're actually in, they're not in Metropolis, they're in Arkham, because Toyman escapes from Arkham. And because he absolutely hates being in Batman City. He hates everything about Batman. He loves Superman and only wants to be noticed by Superman. That's how deranged Toyman is. But what continuing what I was saying, what I really like about this is something that is so small but so important to me, is the difference between Superman and Batman. When Toyman is telling Superman that, begging him not to hurt him, there's a there's a they show two separate panels of Batman threatening Scarecrow and Superman with Toyman in his hands. And the difference between them is, I'm no pun intended, but it's night and day. Batman, he strikes fear in his enemies, and when he tells Scarecrow, "I'm not going to hurt you," that's most likely a lie. So Toyman is obviously not going to believe that. Toyman, even though as deranged as he is, he feels a sense of comfort with Superman, because even though Superman has all these natural abilities, super speed, can shoot lasers out of his eyes, super strength. He knows when Superman says, when he says that "I'm not going to hurt you," he's telling the truth. As opposed to Batman, who might break a few bones, which is completely understandable as to why he begs Superman to take him to Stryker's Island to be sent back to prison instead of Arkham. Because, as crazy as it might sound, Toyman, while he might have some, mental break from reality, even myself, I don't think he deserves to be in a place like Arkham. This is a great comic. I think everyone should definitely read it if you want a different perspective from the villain side, especially for a Superman comic book. I really love when they do the villain's perspective in a comic book, whether it's Batman or the Flash or Superman, Spider-Man, doesn't really matter. I like to see the perspective of the villain so we get a better, try to get their understanding of how they view the world. And that is what this comic does, and it's excellent. So if you guys have read this, let me know your thoughts. I highly enjoyed this. I'm definitely going to reread it again. Highly underrated Superman comic. Let me know what you guys thought. Until then, don't forget to like, comment, hit the subscribe button to stay updated with more movie, TV show, and comic book news and reviews. And until then, enjoy you guys' weekend.